11 long years. But we're at it. We've reached the end game. That feeling that you've been here feeling for the past year since the events of Infinity War, witnessing the deaths of half of the universe at the hands of Thanos. It all has led to this. 11 years, 21 films leading up to the end game of the MCU. But now, where do we go from here? First and foremost, I made this promise to myself and to others on Twitter that I will be doing heavy spoilers in this video. However, I will be saying that go watch the movie now, do it now, then come back and watch this video. By the way, I wore the Young Bucks Elite shirt, so yippee, change the world. And this leads to this whole, we got to talk about this because there's a lot to talk about. This is a 3-hour movie, so heavy spoilers. You've gotten the mark, 115, and I'm going to tell you this. I repeat, do not watch this video if you have not seen Endgame yet. Just go watch it. It's awesome. That's all for that. Let's get into the spoiler talk. Okay. So following the devastation of what Thanos had done, and following Ant-Man and the Wasp film, and following that we also got the whole Captain Marvel movie. The movie opens up to take place the second the snap occurs, where Clint, aka Hawkeye, is training with his daughter in archery at his homestead, since he's under house arrest, but not really, he's more like homestead arrest. And then she gets a bullseye, and just before they can all have have lunch together in the middle of the day, Clint's family disintegrates from the decimation, as it's called. Really, I thought they were going to call it the snap. Leaving Clint in this state of anguish, and we already know what becomes of him, and we already knew that was coming because of how the trailer showcased that. So following all this, we got to the Guardians of the Galaxy music playing. Honestly, I was a little sad that they didn't show all the Stan Lee stuff that they did with the whole, in Captain Marvel after his passing. Felt like that was a missed opportunity there. But, yeah. So, here's the thing. Following all this, it's been 3 weeks past, which means it's been about a month since Thor Ragnarok, and 3 weeks after Infinity War. Tony Stark and Nebula are adrift in space, and they're kind of bonding. You see them interact off of each other, playing this game where, like, they're playing the goalie, but Nebula doesn't know this game, so she keeps doing this. And then, like, Tony Stark and Nebula actually bond while adrift in space on the Guardians of the Galaxy ship, running out of supplies. Nebula, here's the thing I'm gonna say. I think Nebula had the best character arc in the movie. Like, I feel like she was, like, one of the best parts of the movie to me, and that's saying something. Like, Nebula, to me, was, like, very on-the-nose, hard-drived, but in this, you see more to her, like, yeah, I'll get to that in a moment. So, Tony goes on to send a message to Pepper in his helmet in case they ever find his ship. Now they're adrift in space. Their fuel is out. The engines need to power it out. Food's gone. Water's gone. And oxygen's almost out. So they're royally screwed. So he decides to drift off and saying that he'll dream about her. Touching. And then when Nebula gets up, sees him resting, she puts him on one of the seats and proceeds to leave the room. And just soon after, Captain Marvel Carol Danvers arrives to the rescue. Yeah, here's the thing. People are probably wondering, everyone knew that was coming, but people are wondering, wait, what happened? When did this happen? And how does she know who these two are? Well, that's actually pretty easy to explain, and I'm sure the Russo brothers were the ones that filmed the Captain Marvel post-credit scene. Here's the thing. There would be no way that would be complete convenience if they did that. But here's the thing: with that post-credit scene that you saw at the end of Captain Marvel, which shows the aftermath of the census happening, um, so I have reasons to believe this. Captain Marvel came to the Avengers HQ, wanted to know where Nick Fury went. They told him that she was dead. They told her that she was dead, that he was dead, and then when Captain and probably Rocket Raccoon probably informed that they gotta know if the other members of his family are still alive, and that last time they haven't seen each other since they went on their separate paths. He probably has a tracking device on the ship and gave it to Carol Danvers to go out into space to get it because no one else has the capacity to get there. Plus, she's the only one that can breathe in the vacuum of space. So she brings them back to them and the ship to the Avengers headquarters on Earth, and the team is kind of going over assessing the situation of, oh my god, we are royally screwed. All the governments have collapsed, so only the few that remain are doing a huge consensus to figure out how many people are dead. And they come to this obvious conclusion that, yeah, 50% of all life is dead, isn't it? Yeah, it is. And then, afterwards, Stark is reunited with Potts, and he's put in an IV treatment since instead of, they show him really weak and his body giving out like he hasn't eaten. Like, oh my god, they're paying so much attention to detail. I love it. And then Tony just gets furious talking to Steve after what happened in the Civil War, and tells him that he lost the kid upon seeing him, referring to Peter Parker's demise on Titan. And in the Avengers compound, Roger asks Stark if there are any clues to where Thanos may have went, to which Stark says, no, I don't know. I don't know, and I don't care. There's nothing left, and yada yada yada. He's in a defeatist attitude and still having bitter resentment towards him after their Civil War event. Afterwards, he rips out the chest piece that contains his suit and gives it to Steve, and then he collapses on the floor. Which I just got a question. How come that is so easy to remove? You would think that with someone whose chest has a hole in it because of bullet shrapnel, there would be a gaping hole in there, or there was something put in place. But no, we're never given that explanation. But he removes his IV, which was a smart thing to do. Great. And yeah. So after Tony Stark faints and he's going to be out for the rest of the day, they're trying to figure out, okay, we need to find Thanos. We need to figure it out. Rocket states that when Thanos used the stones on Earth, it sent out this huge field of energy coming out, and they asked to contain some of that energy to trace it all the way back to another planet called Titan 2, as it's called. And turns out that Thanos used the stones again just 2 days ago on another planet. And then they go ahead and then Nebula responds with how he would always say he would go to the garden. And, War Machine is like, okay, that's vague. Yeah, I understand that. And with this new information, the Captain America gets his story arc completed to an extent when he talked about in Age of Ultron language, when he says, let's go get this son of a bitch. I'm here to take bubblegums and... Oh, wait, Bucky's dead. I can't use that. I'm here to avenge Bucky. Oh, it's Sam Wilson, I think. Yeah, I'll get to that at the end. So, yeah, after that had happened, they get on Peter Quill's old ship, Rocket Raccoon ship, and they go out, the Avengers head out, and then Carol Danvers does a investigation reconnaissance by trying to figure out if there's any traps, any forces, anyone there. She states that, no, it's just him, alone by himself. And then when Thanos is just walking through the field, getting a space potato, I think, and prepares to make a food and make some dinner for him on Titan 2. By the way, there was something about the shack someone pointed out, but I can't remember what. Other than we get to see the armor of Thanos as the Scarecrow. Oh, by the way, people were probably wondering, but Thanos left his suit on the ship. How did it get to here? Okay, you're not gonna believe this. If you go back to Infinity War, I didn't find out about this till a couple of months ago. If you go back and rewatch Infinity War, at the end of the film when Thanos is walking to sit down, you'll see the armor as the Scarecrow, which means he had already set this up. He set up this whole farm, set up the suit, so clearly he was prepared that, okay, this is my retirement home. Job well done. And the Avengers come in and kick his ass and restrain him. And then they find Thanos weakened and isolated with horrific burns across his face and left arm. And then Thor does what he could have done in Infinity War by severing Thanos' left arm and the gauntlet completely with Stormbreaker. And then to the horror of the Avengers, because they thought, well, we could just go get the stones and undo all this, they find out that the gauntlet is no longer with the stones. Thanos then explains that the stones would have been nothing but temptation. There is nothing left for him to use other than, I want to rule the universe. And he was kind of not interested in that if he kept them and knew that was going on. So with his last act of trying to stop the process from ever being reversed, he said, I used the stones to destroy the stones. And I may have sounded very weirdly saying that, but I used the stones to destroy the stones. The Avengers start to accuse him of lying, and then Bruce Banner gets a little pissed off and doesn't turn it to the Hulk. Nebula, however, says that her father was many things, but he was never a liar. Call back to Infinity War, how Thanos says to Gamora, I taught you many things, but I never taught you to lie. So there's that. And then we get this last bit of character development for Thanos and kind of for Nebula. Thanos says thank you to Nebula and then admits to this. Perhaps I have been too harsh on you. And before any of that could be explained, of realizing that Thanos might have had some thought go through him regarding what he did to Nebula, Thor, in a PG-13 movie, brutally decapitates Thanos off screen that we see his head rolling onto the floor. Rocket, in shock, asks what he has done, and Thor just simply replies that, I went for the head this time, and proceeds to walk out, while Gamora, shocking everyone in the audience probably, instead of reveling in her quest for vengeance, she just simply closes his dead eyes, closes his Thanos' decapitated head eyes, like, rest easily now, kind of thing. And that was kind of shocking, because you would think that Nebula, of all people, would not do that, but it seems like part of her kind of moved on a bit from her quest for revenge, probably somehow, and was doing it more for helping people instead of pure vengeance. But part of her might have still loved Thanos because he did technically raise her, albeit horribly abusive, and there's a case of Stockholm Syndrome to be made. But yeah, so after this, please know, we have not gotten the title of the movie yet. All of this was set up for the film. All of this was set up. So then, after the title is shown, it turns out that there is indeed a time skip. 5 years have passed since the events, and they are left to deal with what happened. We see Steve Rogers being a grief counselor and talking with some people. And here's the thing that kind of annoyed me, because it's like, okay, so the movie didn't make it a big deal. Why did you guys make it a big deal? GameSpot made an article about how, oh, ZOMG, there's a civilian that's gay. And I'm just like, okay. Like, okay. How is that a moment to be freaking out over? Like, I have no problem with with people like who have that preference. That's their prerogative in life. That's who they are. That's who they were, what they were born with. So really, who cares? The movie doesn't overhype it and say, see. No, they just say, oh, I have a boyfriend. Okay. They don't go like, I have a boyfriend. Oh my god, this is such a historical moment. Like, you want to know what would be progressive? Instead of exploding with cheers and joy, this was supposed to be a celebratory moment. Just treat it like it's normal. Because it is normal in the real world. Just treat this like it's normal. Like, oh, hey, this is my boyfriend. Okay, hey. Instead of like, oh my god, we never encountered such creatures before. Like seriously, why does the media, whenever they promote this, an LGBT character, the other side of the media gets to blow it up to the extreme, even though this is not even a character. This is just a civilian. They're trying to sell the whole devastation and how people are feeling. So, anyways, following that, Scott Lang, who had been trapped in the quantum realm for the last 5 years in outside of quantum time, finally escapes after a rat trips the switch. So, Master Splinter, I thank you for your service to the Endgame. Yeah, really think about this. If that rat did not do what was predicted, then this whole thing would have happened. So, which means we have Master Splinter to thank for this. He clearly knew this was Destiny's fate. And you have to also realize that Doctor Strange saw Endgame 14 million times. So that means that he knew the rat was going to do that, which means that there's not a scene in Doctor Strange 2 where he goes there and finds the rat and is like, thank you, rat. Your service has helped save the universe. Okay, move on. Because that would be kind of funny. So, yeah, it has since been moved into a storage facility following the events of Ant-Man and the Wasp, because we all know how that tragically ended in the post-credits scene. Scott Lang's trying to figure out what the hell happened, and then, in the stupidest way possible, he asks the kid what happened, and the kid, with reason, does not answer him, thinking this was just a gigantic slap in the face, because... Like, okay, I get Scott Lang's perspective. He doesn't know what the hell happened. But, yeah. When you see that kid and you're seeing this expression on his face like, did you just really say that, you son of a bitch? Because, think about this. Scott Lang later explains he's only been trapped in the quantum realm for 5 hours. They've been living this post-decimation life for 5 years. Which does lead to this lingering question I have to wonder, if that's the case, how long was Hope trapped in the quantum realm? She's looking like to be the same age as her husband, so does that mean she's been around for only 22 hours, or does time move differently as she went deeper into the quantum realm? I don't know. So yeah, he then finds out that they made a memorial park containing large stones engraved with those who had vanished in the decimation, searching for Cassie. And then when he realizes that Cassie survived and has grown up, he reunites with her, and there's a touching emotional scene. But then has to realize that Hope, Hank, and Janet are all dead. He then travels to the Avengers headquarters, taking the van with him. And while this was going on, we see that this is what happens. So after this, Steve Rogers is doing the grief counseling thing while in New York, and New York looks wrecked after this. In fact, I'm kind of surprised huge wars have not erupted over this. Like, you would think that, like in Infinity Gauntlet, they didn't know what caused it, so they would blame the other, and like, I get Earth would probably be safe because it would suffer war because the Avengers could just explain everything, and plus they don't have the mutant discrimination thing like the 616 universe does. But the other universes, the other worlds probably don't know what the hell's going on, and they'll probably kill each other in the process. So yeah, Black Widow is kind of leading the remains of the Avengers, and they're making contact, and she's making contacts with Captain Marvel, who's got a new haircut to fit more of her comic book counterpart. War Machine, Nebula, and Rocket Raccoon, they're all on their separate missions trying to help as many worlds as possible to help with the effects of the devastation. Oh, and speaking of which, the bodyguard character, whose name I can't pronounce, yeah, for some reason, even though I knew she was going to be a minor character, that she was not going to have a huge role in the movie, people freaked out over the fact her name's not on the poster. Okay? So, like, okay, look. I can understand Marvel made an error and they wanted to promote the actors who were still alive from the effects of the devastation, fine. But the poster always succeeds in doing that. What's the point in freaking out over someone who's not even going to be a main character in the film or have a major plot point? Why have her name on the post? Why freak out over the fact that this minor character is not going to be on her name? The actress's name's not going to be on there. Like, she doesn't have a major role in this movie. She's just very minor. She's like a background character for this because she's, well, there's not much known about her character, and the one interesting aspect of her character was cut from the movie of Black Panther because reasons, and Ryan Coogler tried his damnedest to keep it. And even everyone else, after they saw the clip, was like, yeah, this should have stayed. So, yeah, Black Widow is kind of leading the Avengers while Steve Rogers is off grief counseling. And, like, then Rhodes reveals that, there's something at this point that I don't think we should even find him. Because, you know, Clint has kind of lost his mind. He's been killing people. He's basically become the Punisher, which leads to the question of why didn't they just get the Punisher here? Oh, wait, because he's rated R and Disney can't handle that. So, moving on. So, basically, yeah. Upon Scott Lang has returned, and they're now really curious to know what happened. I'm pretty sure the conversation went like, "So you only got free because of a rat? You didn't have anything that could get you out? A rat saved you, and this is probably the reason why we have a shot at fixing all this?" Okay. So, because they have limited knowledge for the quantum realm, since they said it might be the key to bringing everyone back, they go to the one person they can go to. Stark! And we see Stark trying to rebuild his life, living in an isolated home with his wife, and they have a daughter, which does confirm she was indeed pregnant during the events of Infinity War, probably, because there was hints suggesting it, which means we did not get the scene where he says, I was right! So, yeah. Ooh, okay. So, Stark is very against the idea of doing time travel because here's the thing. He explains that the quantum could theoretically be used to get the Infinity Stones, but he's concerned about, and says that it's possible, but it could erase their very existence. Um, he decides, yeah, I'm not doing this because I have a daughter. I'm trying to rebuild my life. If I don't want to lose them. Yeah, that's understandable. Like at the time, they had no other ways to fix this, so basically they had to move on. And Tony Stark, despite all the grief he has, does kind of move on to an extent with his wife and newborn daughter. So yeah, afterwards, so after this whole event, Rogers, Romanoff, and Lang leave and instead meet with Bruce Banner at a restaurant. And after the decimation and both Hulk and Banner's defeat, Banner decided to use more gamma radiation and come to this acceptance with each other to morph his body to the size and appearance of the Hulk, but retain his intelligence and control of Banner, becoming a more combined version of best of both worlds kind of thing. However, his meager knowledge with the quantum physics, he doubts that it can be done, but agrees to help them experiment with the idea, leading to hilarity. Specifically, Scott Lang turning into an old man, a baby, and yeah. So that happened. So during this, Stark asks Friday after being motivated by a picture of Peter Parker and him because father and son relationship. They decide to run possible configurations for a time machine. He then discovers the key to travel using a Mobius strip design. Having done so, he discusses with Potts about with the mortality of time traveling, and she just says that basically says that you would never be able to rest. Even if you stopped all this, you would never be able to rest. So, yeah, following this, okay. After arriving with, to the Avengers HQ, and, yeah, here's the thing. Steve Rogers and Tony, to an extent, reconcile, and then they decide we gotta get the band back together. So, okay, so Banner and Rocket on their end travel to Norway, which is now known as New Asgard, to recruit Thor, and Thor has kind of lost his mind. You see, upon their arrival, they discover that Thor has gained considerable weight, become an alcoholic, developing a beer belly, and has spent much of his time playing video games with Korg and Meek, confirming their survival. Oh, and Valkyrie's alive and well. I'm still trying to wonder how they got where they went after they left the ship when it was attacked. And Thor is like, oh, I can't help. And they're playing Fortnite, and I was like, oh my God, you had to, didn't you? Oh God. Oh God, why did Fortnite have to be added? Why did you put Fortnite? In fact, I was expecting a Disney product to be added. Like Star Wars Battlefront 2. Because in the Runaway show, they actually did a tie-in plug-in for Star Wars Battlefront EA, the first one they did, which was horrible to many, and I agree. They did that tie-in. Why didn't they do Battlefront 2? Like, that would have been at least better than Fortnite. Like, I've tried the game. It just isn't for me. So, yeah, Thor has become the dude from The Big Lebowski. I'm not even kidding. They make suggestive references to that. He even puts on shades like, you know. So, yeah. So, that poster you see of Thor looking badass with Stormbreaker and everything. Yeah, that was a blatant lie. He's going to be what he looks like with the whole alcoholic and weight thing throughout the entire movie. I'm not kidding. Like, Like, it doesn't feel as epic when he has fight scenes later on. It doesn't feel as epic when you realize, oh god, oh god. Like, I get why they did this, because Thor is feeling all this regret in him, his guilt. Like, he lost his family 5 years ago in the span of a year. His mother killed by the Dark Elves. Oh, they've finally been brought up again, but they're never labeled important. So, yeah. Jane Foster even comes back in a cameo kind of appearance. No idea if this is newer footage of her, or they just had to splice Rocket Raccoon in there because he's basically a CGI walking character. So, yeah. And then you have to also consider that Odin's dead, Loki's dead, and a core of Asgard remains now. So there's that. So he doesn't want to help because of all this pain he's in, and he could have stopped the events that led to the decimation, but because of his arrogance and quest for vengeance, it caused everything. However, and he also made a policy not to have Thanos be mentioned. He basically turned him into Voldemort. However, Banner and Rocket eventually convinced Thor to help them with alcohol, because that's a much more prioritized reason to go back and fix everything. Yeah. So, meanwhile, Romanoff intercepts Clint, now known as the Ronin, in Tokyo, and he proceeds to murder everybody in the Yakuza brutally. And like, there's a scene where he murders the Yakuza boss, and we actually see blood coming out of his throat. And I was like, oh my god, this is a PG-13 movie. Oh god, I wonder how kids are feeling right now seeing all this blood. Especially since they show the bloody crusade that he's on. And Clint was initially against it because he didn't want to feel hope and ultimately be disappointed, but ultimately agrees and returns to headquarters together with her. And Barton decides to be the first to test to see if the time travel really is possible when Barton is successfully being sent back into the past, hearing his daughter, and tries to go to her, but then is teleported back. The Avengers then begin a plan to make a plan to take the Infinity Stones back and bring them back to the future to restore all the people killed in the decimation. So then they talk about all the stuff, planning things out, trying to discuss what to do with this while building the quantum time travel device. And then Natasha has to be the one that points out the freaking obvious, like, you know, if you think about it for like more than 3 seconds, 3 stones were all in New York at the same time. And I'm pretty sure they were like, oh my god, we are so stupid. So yeah, the Soul Stone is on Vormir, while the Power Stone is on planet Morag. The Reality Stone is on Asgard inside Jane Foster, so that's going to be an uncomfortable reunion. And the remaining 3 stones, Space, Mind, and Time, all can be found in New York in 2012. So basically we're going to Infinity War pre-Infinity War, Vormir. We go to Morag, Guardians of the Galaxy 1, the beginning. We go to reality. We go to Thor: The Dark World without the Dark Elves, and then we go to the Avengers movie. So basically, the whole plot is they're using fan service as a plot device, which I thought was ingenious, and it's done correctly. So yeah, the Avengers only have enough pin particles for one trip each, so they split off into 3 separate teams. Thor and Rocket go to Asgard. Nebula and James Rhodes to Morag, and Romanoff and Barton to Vormir. Rogers, Stark, Banner, and Lang would go to New York during the battle. And then we see, yeah, the return of the Ancient One. So the Ancient One and her Master of the Mystic Arts crew were based in New York for a little bit. They did set up shop afterwards. They were in New York the whole time. So, yeah. And we're even seeing clips of the old events that happened, and I'm like, Okay, this is awesome. But like, I'm loving the different angles. Like, we see different angles of everything and different sides of everything. And we even see that the ancient one lady was there the whole time. Yeah, the actress who played her returns. And then the Ancient One talks to Banner, telling him that instead of actually affecting the past, time travel creates alternate realities, which can be dangerous. Banner eventually convinces her convinces the Ancient One into giving him the Time Stone after informing that yes, you see, Doctor Strange gave it to Thanos for a reason, and she was like, "He's meant to be the best of us." So this leads to a question. She knows Banner, that's not the same Banner. She knows that he's 5 years too early. And he even explains that Stephen Strange is like several blocks away performing surgery during the battle. Which means I have only one question. If that's the case, if she knows everything that's going to happen, why didn't she do a damn thing to fix it? She already broke the rules. Just break the rules again and just fix it. What? Then we want to have a movie? Okay. So... yeah, here's the thing how this goes. So after all this, so Banner returns to headquarters by himself after getting the Time Stone, and Stark and Lang follow the Tesseract but fail to retrieve it because Hulk is pissed off because original Hulk is pissed off with Stairs. And this leads to a question that probably will get answered in a potential 4-4 because it has been said, it's been pitched. Loki gets the Tesseract and disappears, and he's never seen again. So, where did Loki go? Like, he couldn't have gone back to Thanos, knowing he failed and a huge portion of his forces were just viciously slaughtered. So does that mean that Loki went somewhere in hiding and is secretly alive? You see, this is where the conundrum starts to set in with that. But, yeah. Rogers fights... But then Steve Rogers meets himself and they start fighting. And this leads to a very hilarious moment. So Steve Rogers gets into the elevator with the other SHIELD members who are Hydra agents. And Steve Rogers is standing in the elevator and he's surrounded by people, and you're expecting him to just beat the living shit out of all of them, as a callback to Winter Soldier. But instead they do this. The secretary sent me. Hell Hydra. And I was like, oh my god, you referenced Secret Empire of all comics. Oh my god, that's hilarious. So afterwards, the original Steve Rogers finds modern Steve Rogers, and they fight, thinking that he's Loki in disguise. And then Steve Rogers decides to reveal some future information by saying Bucky is alive, causing past Steve Rogers to be like, "What?" Only to get knocked out by the scepter. So yeah. So when the main three meet up, Rogers and Stark decide to use their pin particles to travel to SHIELD headquarters in 1970, where they can find both the Tesseract and more pin particles to return home. Lang takes the Mind Stone and returns to the Avengers headquarters by himself. And they go back to 1970. Lang goes back to 2023. Yeah, since it's been 5 years and it was 2018 when Infinity War happened, they decided to say 5 years have passed, 2023. So, and here's the thing that was a missed opportunity for me, and this leads to a question I would be curious about. Romanoff and Clint are greeted on Vormir by Red Skull. And you would think Natasha would be kind of familiar with that name since she always hung out with Steve Rogers. And once they are informed, yada yada yada, that a soul must be sacrificed for a soul, and they're like, okay, hold on a minute, we'll be right back. Okay, what the hell are we gonna do? He's not kidding, so yeah. So anyways, after they come to the conclusion that one of them will make the ultimate sacrifice, they briefly fight each other for the right to sacrifice themselves for the other. Like, Clint wants Romanoff to tell my family I love them. And she says no and basically stops him from killing himself and throws herself off the cliff to her death. And Clint takes the Soul Stone. And we see Natasha Romanoff's dead body. And whereas Gamora's body was just this, Romanoff's is like this. But here's the thing they did. I was just like laughing a little bit, like, oh god. I was laughing to myself, thinking in my head at least. I didn't say it out loud. Like, it was a sad scene to see Natasha go. I wasn't expecting her to go, especially since there's a Black Widow movie in development, which will be confusing for people. But the problem I had with this is like, so let's see if I get this straight. Gamora falls off the cliff, is thrown off the cliff, no blood comes out. But when Natasha falls off the cliff and dies, you see blood coming out of her head. And I was like, this is a PG-13 movie, right? This is a PG-13 movie, right? It is, right? So then we get back to the 1970s. Rogers locates the pin particles while Stark finds the Tesseract. However, when they attempt to meet up, Rogers sees Peggy and gets all sad and whatnot, reminiscing of the past, which leads to something later. And on the other hand, Stark runs into his father, and after a long and somewhat awkward conversation, Tony then finally does the one thing he says that he had wished he could do. Thanks his father for raising him while still maintaining his hidden identity. They return to their present time. However, as Rhodes and Nebula were on their mission on Morag, they didn't watch Peter Krill act like an idiot, and even Nebula was like Rhodes was like, so I see. He's an idiot. And Nebula was like, yeah. Yeah, like, Nebula kind of had the best jokes in the movie. Because you can't expect the way she's been throughout the movies in her time. It's so serious and bitter and angry. And all of a sudden, she's just starting to be a comedian a bit. So, yeah. However, the past versions of Thanos, Gamora, and Nebula travel to Morag after detecting present-day Nebula because her network's in sync with past Nebula. So, yeah, Nebula probably should have thought that through. Rose travels back to present time, but Nebula is left malfunctioning and is left to be found by Thanos and her younger self, who uses his Nebula time travel device to travel forward in time and impersonate her future self. So with all the stones and the problem on board, the Avengers return to the future to find each other and successfully acquire the Infinity Stones. But they learn about Romanoff's death and Banner not really getting a satisfying conclusion with his relationship with her, so I don't know. And after the moment of mourning and realizing that, yeah, she's dead for good, probably, they set about utilizing the stones with new determination. Stark, with the help of Banner and Rocket, create his own Infinity Gauntlet. Which people would probably wonder, which even Jeremy Jahns wondered, wait, but that doesn't make sense. Like, okay, I would show you the Infinity Gauntlet that I have. In fact, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. We're gonna get a new angle on the thoughts video. We're gonna see me moving around much more. Hold on. Okay. You see this Infinity Gauntlet? Do you see it? Do you see it? Because this gauntlet was made by the people who made Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. I finally got to pronounce that right finally after so long. For those who did not see my Ultimate Thor review. So yeah, in the MCU, Earth 1999999 whatever nines, because it is part of the Marvel Greater Multiverse, which leads to questions on that, but we'll move on from that. So, yeah, anyways. So, with this key information, how would Tony Stark be able to acquire the resources needed to control space magic? Because the Gauntlet barely was able to keep together after using the stones as full power. Where they have the might of those who made Mjolnir and Stormbreaker and all the most powerful weapons in Asgard and in the known universe. And you're telling me that Tony Stark's tech that isn't even advanced at the level of space tech? You mean to tell me they didn't really have the resources for that? Also, if you've noticed, I haven't mentioned Captain Marvel because she was barely in the movie. Yeah, they built her up this big character in Infinity War and Captain Marvel, and she's like in there for like at best 20 minutes. Yeah, she even says that you're probably not going to see me for a long, long time because I'm needed all these other worlds suffering from the devastation effect, from the decimation effect. So, yeah, after a short discussion, they try to decide, okay, who's going to do it? Who's going to do this? Thor wants to do it, but he can't. Oh, wait, I haven't gone back to Thor yet. You see, Thor and Rocket are able to locate Jane Foster, and Thor doesn't want to talk to her, and even explains about how she's an old flame, even though the reason why they broke up was because Natalie Portman was pissed off at Marvel for some reason. I don't know, but I do believe what she said was fuck the MCU, and we all know how that turned out. She was at the premiere red carpet, so clearly they might have ironed out their issues. And Thor does meet his mother and gets some form of closure. Takes Mjolnir from the past, so I'm pretty sure that's not going to fuck everything up. And yeah, it is a touching emotional scene. Like, even she was able to tell, you're from the future. So yeah, so now they have all that. So, since Thor can't do it because he's not in physical condition because of his degradation, so Banner is the only one that can reverse the decimation himself because of his strength, gamma radiation, and he's almost filled with it, as he can only withstand the radiation caused by using all 6 stones. And after the Avengers put shields on them to protect themselves from the blast and start getting out of the room, and after locking down the facility, Banner snaps his fingers while past Nebula is on the computer and on the time travel device and brings in the Sanctuary 2 through the building and brings that past Thanos and his army from the past to the future, allowing Thanos and his army to arrive in the past. And then and then they realize that it worked. You see, what happens is Clint gets a call from his wife confirming that, yes, the effects have finally been reversed. And Scott Lang notices some living creatures that popped out of nowhere. He looks outside, smiles with a tear in his eye saying it worked. And then when Sanctuary 2 fires his weapons, I thought Scott Lang was killed off. I genuinely thought, like, he's dead, isn't he? If he is not dead, I will call bull. Bull! That man is dead. He got the face first of an explosion, and he didn't have his helmet on. He should at least have his face severely burnt, at least. So, following this, Thanos and past Nebula arrive, and the Avengers are separated, and then Thanos orders past Nebula to prove your loyalty to me. Go give me the gauntlet. And then, while this is going on, so Thanos says, I will wait here and sit. I will sit here and wait for the final battle that is to come in the most epic ways that is rivaling that of Lord of the Rings, but that only took 3 movies and over 10 hours. Okay, maybe 12. So yeah, that happened. And yeah, then he unleashes the army of the Chitauri, the Outriders, and more, led by the children of Thanos, the Dark Order, or the Black Order, or whatever. Proxima Midnight, Ebony Maw, Crovis Grave, and Coal Obsidian. And the Avengers are separated after the destruction of the new Avengers facility. Thor, Rogers, and Stark resolve to finally stop and put an end to Thanos' quest. And they start to encounter him. Clint finds the gauntlet, fights to keep the Outriders from taking it before being tricked by Nebula. Gamora and future Nebula arrive, having decided to work together after Nebula reveals that they reconcile. We do this. We're a family again. And they kill the past Nebula, which should technically mean by time travel logic in my mind that future Nebula should be dead. Yeah, they say the laws of time that you see on TV and movies don't count because they're not real. So, yeah, they even bring up a lot of the time-traveling movies and shows, and then Scott Lang says, so Back to the Future was shit? Was total bullshit? My childhood is ruined. Moving on. So then, Thanos, upon learning what the future was, has declared to Thor, Rogers, and Stark that, and I'm not kidding, that I will tear this. He gives this long speech that you could not live past your own failures, and then comes to the realization that because the fact that people will not be able to move on from what was once was, and said what could be with the decimation, he decides, okay, since what I consider myself to be a noble person with noble intentions, even though they're fucked up in the head, I am instead going to reboot the universe like Parallax's Superboy Prime from DC Comics. Oh, and Doctor Doom from 616, but we don't talk about that plot. I am going to reshape the universe into my image. So yeah, Thanos has become pure villain now. Instead of being anti-villain, whereas you understand his motives, he's just a bad person who's going about it the wrong way. Whereas Thanos now is like, I must twirl my mustache for salvation! So yeah, they fight, and here's the thing, I keep trying to get invested in the scene, but Thor's current condition just doesn't help me. So so as this goes on, Thor easily defeats Thor, Rogers, and Stark, who fight him, and then the most epic badass moment happens during this fight. Thor is about to be pierced the same way Thanos of the future was pierced when Stormbreaker was attacked, when Thanos was pushing Stormbreaker deeper into his chest. Then you see Mjolnir moving, and it's like, oh, Thor has a plan. He's letting this happen. And then the hammer hits Thanos. It doesn't go to Thor. So everyone's freaked out. Like, wait, then where did it go? Like, did the Thor of the past somehow get here? Nope. Captain freaking fucking America, baby! America! Fuck yeah! Is able to wield Mjolnir. He is worthy enough to wield Mjolnir. And has his shield. Which means only one thing. Marvel somehow managed to top an iconic moment from the JLA/Avengers crossover where Superman did the exact same thing because he was worthy enough. And everyone still says that was the most badass thing they ever saw. Now it's like, well, we got that in live action, but it was with Captain America. I'll take it. And Thor is like, I knew it. So yeah, that small joke at the end of during Age of Ultron turns out to be like, it's actually a plot point. So recontextualizing a bit of Age of Ultron to make this work. So yeah, Captain America was worthy. I get a feeling like, now that leads to the question, well, why didn't he do that before with the whole Age of Ultron events? Probably because at the time Winter Soldier had happened and mind was still a little bit conflicted about his ideals and beliefs. So that like he was still pure of heart, but his mind was still divided a little bit. Then the Civil War happened and everything, and so yeah. And then, as this fight goes on, Captain America's shield starts breaking as Thanos starts cutting it down to size. And then, the most epic, badass moment happens where Thanos explains that, taunting Steve Rogers, that, I don't take pleasure in what I've done, but considering how frustrating and annoying this planet is, I'll take great pleasure in this, as I twirl my mustache. Then we get this army of portals opening, and we get the decimation's been reversed. We get Sam Wilson, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Scarlet Witch, Spider-Man, Drax, Groot, Wasp, Star-Lord, Mantis, Valkyrie, Okoye, Shuri, Winter Soldier, and they're with the Master of the Mystic Arts. They're led by by the bodyguards of the Wakanda army. They're led by the Ravagers. They're led by the Asgardians. They're led with Pepper Potts in her rescue suit. And the two armies, and Steve Rogers wielding Mjolnir in his shield, just does this. Avengers! Assemble. And I was like, yes! He finally said the two words everyone was looking forward to seeing. Like, everyone had been wanting to hear him say Avengers Assemble. That was the ultimate catchphrase in all the Avengers stories. And yet they never said it in the MCU until they said, we need to build that up. We need to wait for an epic, badass moment to happen. And then you get the Ravagers, the Asgardians, Wakanda's army, the Master of the Mystic Arts. You got the whole movie side of the MCU together, and they charge into war. The Battle of Earth begins between the armies of Thanos and the armies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Ready to kick ass and take names. And I really wished that Disney would get their egos away with the old children content ruling system and just let the TV characters show up. Imagine how badass more it would have been if we got, like, the Daredevil, we got Jessica Jones, we got the Punisher, we got Luke Cage, we got Iron Fist, we bring back Phil Coulson and the SHIELD team he's with. They're in the future, I believe, in season 5. I don't know what they're doing in season 6. We get the Runaways. We get all the MCU. Like, let's get the whole MCU characters in this one epic finale and go to war against the army of Thanos. That would have been much more epic. And now, the newly assembled Avengers and the armies of the MCU are in this huge epic battle, like Lord of the Rings epic. Like, this has been building up for this moment, and they're trying to keep the gauntlet away from Thanos and his forces, passing it between themselves. The Avengers attempt to force Thanos back into the past using the portal from Lewis's van, which I'm pretty sure wouldn't work, and Thanos destroys it. And then when Sanctuary 2 is forced to rain fire, and knowing that it would kill a lot of his forces, Thanos unleashes it to try and kill as many people as possible. And Danvers arrives, destroys Sanctuary 2 in epic battle, and begins helping pushing back the enemy forces. Eventually, after fighting against and defeating the various Avengers, Thanos finally retrieves the gauntlet, and announces that I am inevitable. But before this, Doctor Strange and Tony Stark are talking, saying, did you know about this? And Doctor Strange is like, I can't tell you that, for that might lead to us losing. Which, when you realize it, yeah, that's the case. That would have been the case. And then Tony Stark reunites with Peter Parker. Pepper Potts and him are fighting together. And Doctor Strange is holding back a sea of water from falling into the battle and drowning everybody. And then when Thanos finally is about to finally unleash the gauntlet, and even defeats Captain Marvel, who everyone thought was going to be the one that killed Thanos because... Okay, here's the thing. The idea, like, Captain Marvel's been built up as this ultimate hero that's going to be the one that saves everyone. She doesn't really do that. She's, like, in the movie for 20 minutes. In fact, even the director of Captain Marvel was like, yeah, we kind of forgot to give her a weakness. And the Russo brothers was like, okay, then we'll give her a weakness. She gets her ass kicked by the Infinity Stones. Like, I know we built her up in Infinity War at the end, but you didn't give her a weakness, so we're gonna just have her ass handed to her by Thanos, even when she's in badass mode. And then Iron Man looks at Doctor Strange. He says, and he just raises one finger up, saying, "This is the one moment. This is the one defining moment." Iron Man realizes what needs to happen, and he when Thanos retrieves the gauntlet and Tony tries to take it from him, he snaps his fingers, saying, "I am inevitable." What? Nope. Tony Stark took the Infinity Gauntlet, took the Infinity Stones into his own gauntlet built into his suit and then he says, "I am Iron Man." And then boom! After the armies of Thanos begin disintegrating, and then Thanos finally looking around, seeing all this, he just accepts his fate and just sits quietly watching the sunrise. And just ultimately accepts his fate with dignity. However, Tony Stark is mortally wounded from his wounds and the radiation poisoning from using the stones. And comforted by Parker and Pepper Potts, he dies peacefully, and a funeral is held outside his home with all the Avengers in attendance, including Nick Fury, Ross, May Parker, and then there was this one person. Now, everyone was probably confused by, wait, who is that guy? We've never seen him before. You see, that's Harley Kenner. Now, you're probably wondering, who the hell is Harley Kenner? Ho, ho, ho. He's that kid from Iron Man 3. That's how goddamn attention to detail they get. They get this kid who was in there for, like, at best 10 to 15 minutes and was like, put him in the movie. We gotta get attention to detail. And then, as we see this, this funeral moment afterwards, we get all these satisfactory conclusions, and we see a bunch of the people kind of accepting the new reality they're living in the post-decimation environment, but yet now as many people were possibly saved, but Natasha Romanoff wasn't saved. Vision wasn't saved, so he's permanently dead unless they want to bring him back somehow. And Loki's kind of dead, I think. But they had planned to return the Infinity Stones back to their respective timelines. Steve Rogers is the one who's going to do it. And then, as this was going on, I was like, how do they do that? Like, I know they're going to travel through time, but, like, really think about this. Steve Rogers would have to break into the laboratory, break into S.H.I.E.L.D., inject Jane Foster, and cause all of Dark World to happen. Like, the 1970s would probably be easy enough, but how would he get all this stuff around in high-tech security places even when he had clearance at the time? And how would he get past Asgard unless he disguised himself as Loki? So yeah, they sent him into the past with all the stones and even Mjolnir. And then when Banner says, okay, time to bring it back in 3, 2, 1. Where is he? And then Wilson and Barnes, thank God they're back. Then we're like, hey, look. They turn and they see a old man sitting on a log, sitting, watching the water. And then they walk up to him and they realize, and Wilson walks up. Bucky Barnes decides to stay behind, and they see Steve Rogers in his elderly years. After he had returned all the stuff that was taken from the past events, decides to go back to the 40s to reunite with Peggy. And then Rogers gives his shield to Wilson, saying that he should take it, despite Wilson's protest, and entrusts him to carry on the mantle of Captain America. Okay, one problem with this. I kind of wanted Bucky to be the guy that becomes Captain America because he's kind of badass and he's kind of known Rogers for over 100 years. So yeah. Anyways, Thor, however, declares Valkyrie to be the Queen of Asgard and joins the Guardians of the Galaxy, and seemingly hinted that he and Quill are going to have a battle for supremacy for leadership. And then we see, and then we get the moment with Steve Rogers, and then we cut back to the 40s to see that Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter finally got that dance that they promised to do after the events of World War II. The scene cuts to credit. The movie cuts to credits. We see all the cast members, all the characters throughout the MCU, all together, and ending with Iron Man being the last one named, and that's it. It's like there's no post-credits scene. There's nothing. That's it. It's over. The era is ended. It will never be duplicated again. So yeah, that's the end to Endgame, and the end of the Infinity Saga, as it was called. And it was possibly the most emotional moments in the entire series that was all leading to this. Now, there is some questions asked about Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, and Loki. Like, they have a Black Widow movie coming out, and clearly Black Widow is dead, and clearly not going to come back unless they want to do something about it. Loki is possibly alive. Like, he took the Tesseract and disappeared. Like, they had to have a reason for him to just take it. Like, okay, yes, you could probably say, oh, it's to be more challenging or something like that. But, like, that had to have gone somewhere. It couldn't have disappeared. And then there's the part of Steve Rogers staying in the past and then being alive to 2023. That leads to this question. Does that mean Steve Rogers, the one that we see in the future, is really, it has been on the down low and has been hiding this whole time and didn't really pop into public viewing until this one particular moment finally happened? So basically, and that leads to the moment in Civil War much more awkward. Remember how Steve Rogers kisses Agent 13, who is a descendant of Peggy Carter, and it was already weird enough as it was for the fact that you're kissing your dead lover's descendant. Yeah, so basically what you just implied, that Steve Rogers that we saw throughout the entire MCU after First Avenger was attracted to his great-great-niece? Disgustingly weird, and I'm surprised they did that. Even for a Disney-controlled flick. So, yeah. And... yeah, and then... and it was like... But then people were asking that, wait, then what happened with Civil War? What happened in Winter Soldier when we saw Peggy Carter looking at Steve and being all shocked to see him and reuniting with him and whatnot, and there was the whole emotional moment there. Yeah, here's the thing. That scene could still work. You want to know how I know? Because they mentioned how she has Alzheimer's. I believe they did mention she has Alzheimer's disease and keeps forgetting stuff. So there's a huge chance that when she saw Steve Rogers, she did know for a moment that, yes, this is all meant to happen, but there is another, but then her memory, but then like maybe due to her Alzheimer's disease, she forgets certain moments and then thinks that when she sees the younger Steve Rogers, she's like thinking like it's the 40s again. So really, you could say that, yeah, she's kind of thinking like it's the 1940s again when Steve Rogers does come back. which recontextualizes a bit of Winter Soldier, and still creeps me out with the whole Agent 13 moment in Civil War. So yeah, that was the emotional goodbye to Tony Stark in Captain America. Thor is alive, so he's going to have a Thor 4 and probably going to be involved in Guardians of the Galaxy. And also Peter Quill, it looks like he's going to try and search for Gamora, thinking she might still, there was a chance she's still alive. I like there's a chance, but probably not. So now they're off on their mission, on their own journey. Wakanda's now back to thriving mode again. And that's it. It's the end of an era. Honestly, if they ended the series, the MCU shared universe, with just this, I think it would work. Like, they didn't put in a post-credits scene because there's nothing really to build off of this. Okay, there is one thing that was brought up. I didn't stay for this part, but like, in this one particular scene, after the credits are done, you hear this audio stinger going on, like this weird noise happening. They don't know if that was like a homage to. There were theories about Iron Man, Tony Stark becoming Iron Man in the cave, or something. But now that leads to another question: what do we go from here on this point? Well, like, how do you top this? Well, there is actually a way to top this. Like the obvious people that you could possibly bring into the event to be the next big baddie or big threat to the universe. Like, you can't, like, Doctor Doom isn't in the MCU yet. And the X-Men aren't in the MCU yet, so you can't put Apocalypse or the Dark Phoenix, and plus we've already got 2 Dark Phoenixes already completed, so by that time we'll just get a third one probably. I wouldn't be surprised. And then with that you get and then there's Galactus. I think I don't think he's been officially added yet, and he was bought back by Marvel because of the Fox acquisition. So those three baddies they could bring in. That's gonna take a long time to bring in. So who would top Thanos? There is actually one entity that I think could do it, and I think this has had something to do with a certain Adam Warlock. It's going to be the Beyonder. Secret Wars. The Secret Saga. That's my prediction of what the next overall saga is going to be for the MCU. You have the Infinity Saga. The only way to top it is to have a multiversal threat of the Secret Wars event. You have a foundation to work with it. You got Jonathan Hickman's stories. You can work with that. Like, yeah, it will have to be heavily altered, but you have a foundation with Secret Wars 2015. You got the Avengers by Jonathan Hickman. I have both omnibuses, and I'm still working on that project. So yeah, 11 years, 22 films, all leading up to the Infinity Endgame saga. And I gotta get this. I'll be right back. We got one last cameo from the legendary Stan Lee, driving and partying, which explains his Ant-Man and the Wasp cameo appearance. This is the Stan Lee I got for Christmas. The reason why he's out is he's actually a Chinese knockoff, but I gotta be honest, this is a pretty good knockoff. So, yeah. Excelsior! Meanwhile, I got the official Pop Funko for a few weeks ago. The Icons Pop Funko, and see him? So yeah, Stan Lee has helped usher in, along with Kevin Feige, ushered in the era of the shared universes, and Stan Lee finally got to have some form of closure after his death to be in the ultimate endgame of the Infinity Saga. The saga he was in all the way through from beginning, middle to end. Pretty damn awesome to go out. And my God, I'm gonna miss the guy in these movies. It's gonna be tough to be weird without him around. So Long live the MCU. Long live a whole bunch of other stuff that's going to happen later down the road. I hope my prediction of the Beyonder being the next big threat to the MCU is going to happen. Long live the Stan Lee. Long live Excelsior. And this was Neo Reality Entertainment. These were my thoughts on Marvel Studios' The Avengers Endgame. This was my thoughts on it. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate. Stay tuned for more. And don't forget, everyone, Excelsior!